All right, boys and girls, we are live. I am again here with the buddy Caleb Allen from the DFS Sweatshop. We are here for the PGA Wyndham Championship, the last event here before the FedEx Cup playoffs begin. We have a very, very, very weak field this week, but oh shit, I have YouTube open. Sorry, I hear myself. Oopsies. Um, anyway, so yeah, we have a very weak field. But DK seems to think this is a great event to have some big tournaments. We still got some big, big tournaments out there. There's a dog leg with 100K to first place. If I remember correctly, most of the dog legs are 50K to first place over the last few weeks. So to have a 100K dog leg for a tournament like this, that is very enticing. So before we get into any of the plays, I'm going to introduce Caleb here. Anything you got to say, my brother?
Hey, yeah, I had JT everywhere last week, but
Oh, yeah, let's do a little recap of last week if you don't mind. Yeah,
I had JT
crazy week.
everywhere last week, and I didn't pair him with enough top 20 guys to really make a dent, unfortunately. So I barely cashed, and it made me so mad. I hate picking the winner and then barely cashing, especially when he's so underowned. Uh, so I was upset about that. I had Hoffman everywhere.
Yeah.
Hoffman was awful. I still think he's going to have a good FedEx playoffs, but he just did not show up.
Right. Yeah, I was really bummed by that. I was waiting for Hoffman to come back from that +6 he was sitting at, and he never made that move. Like Molinari's Sunday was absolutely nuts. Like absolutely
It was
nuts.
nuts.
Like I was sitting there on the 12th hole, and they have an update. They have a scoreboard at every single hole where they hand update it, and it was just after every group came by, it was they would add a score to Molinari, and he'd go from 2 under, 3 under, 4 under, 5 under, 6. I was like, holy shit, boys! Like they had him at the very bottom of the leaderboard instead of like moving him. They just said, fuck it, we got to leave him there and just keep adding the numbers. So it was a
That's
crazy.
how he normally plays on Thursdays, and then he fades. So he just brought it to Sunday for some reason. And then, you had Graham Dillette, back-to-back Eagles, bookended with birdies. So if you didn't have either of those two guys.
I think he went like birdie, eagle, eagle, and he would have hold out, but it was like a foot away from the hole. Like it wasn't a tough eagle either. I can't remember which one specifically, but it was almost a hole in one, which would have. Well, I mean, he was only owned at like 0.6% in the milli, I think from what I read.
That would have been insane. But yeah, if you didn't have those two guys on Sunday, they just shot up the leaderboard and scored a ton of DK points, and you kind of had to have them to get in to cash in the big tournaments. So, or not cash, but to cash well. So, anyways, hoping to make some sense out of this much, much weaker field. And honestly, I feel like in these weak fields where it's anybody's game, we've got a bigger advantage than in the tournaments when all the big guns are out. Because as we saw last week, the big guns can fall and fade, and like all three of the most expensive guys didn't do enough to put you over the top if you had one of them last week.
Right. Yeah. You really had to have those other guys down low, like Dillette.
Yeah, Matsuyama, and even though he faded at the end, you had to have Matsuyama and JT, and some of the guys in the 10K range did all right, but man.
Right. Yeah. I played in the Millie Maker. I was actually cashing until Sunday with 2 missed cuts just because I had Ricky and Matsuyama as my main 2 guys. I faded Rory in the Millie. I played Rory in cash.
I don't ever play Matsuyama. I haven't liked him all season, but I missed the boat on him because he was peaking at the right time. But I almost played Matsuyama and JT and Fowler, and I liked Rory too much, so I played Rory instead of those guys. But I could have. I had a line where I had all of them, and I kind of liked it, but I decided to play my Rory line.
Right.
So we were on the right place, just didn't play them. Story of the DFS life.
Right. All right, guys. So let's get right into it for this week. We have a par 70 around 7,000 to 7,100 yards. It depends on the tee placement, which tee boxes they use, and where the pins are placed. But it is all in all, it will be a very short course where accuracy stands out the most. As you can tell by Caleb's model, if I think you're screen sharing, right? Yes, I see.
Yeah, I'm about to pull it back up.
Oh yeah, no problem. So we talked before we went live about what our models were looking at, just so we didn't go in blindly with each other. But Both of us seem to have I'm running 10 different stats, which can be ludicrous, but I'm trying to make sure that in a volatile field like this, I want to make sure that my guys fit almost everything that matters so I don't miss anything. And accuracy seems to be the number one thing. It's going to be a birdie fest. Winning scores have always been about 15 and under or better. I think one year it was only 13, but I think there was some weather to do with that. But still, if there's weather and you're still shooting 10 under par or better, then with no weather, you should blow the course away. Last year's winner, Siwoo Kim, shot 21 under, the highest we've seen so far. So, and the golfers seem to get better each year. So we should see something very similar this week. I am looking at 10 different stats, and I know that's a lot. I'm attributing them evenly. I'm looking at our strokes gained around the green, birdies, overall birdies, strokes gained putting, which I usually don't look at. It's just putting seems to be what keeps guys like birdie streaks seem to happen with guys that catch a hot putter, and I don't know. Like Keegan Bradley, 109th in putting is going to turn some people off. But if you look at his other stats, he's first in tee to green, which is my next stat I'm looking at. Proximity 150 to 175, which is will be the approach shot distance on average. DK points overall, which goes along with birdies. Good drive percentage, which is an accuracy stat. Par fives from 500 to 550 because there's only 2 par fives and they're both in that range. And then strokes gained approach and strokes gained off the tee, which Caleb just got me on because I accidentally had par 5 scoring and 500 to 550, which is almost pointless if they're kind of the same thing. So anyway, Keegan Bradley is first in strokes gained off the tee as well in the last 24 rounds. So I will have a little give and take. I will probably be playing Keegan Bradley just because a lot of people are scared, especially that price tag, but we don't need to get that far into it. Caleb, what stats are you looking at for the viewers out there?
Yeah, so I'm focusing, like I mentioned before we went live, I'm focusing almost exclusively on accuracy stats and scoring stats. So I've got good drives, strokes gained approach, strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained off the tee, and those all fall in the accuracy category. And then I've got bogey avoidance and birdies. And I'm weighting bogey avoidance a little less because in an event like this, you don't really want the guy that's going to get to 15 under by getting 17 birdies and 2 bogeys. You want the guy that's going to get to 15 under by getting 22 birdies and 7 bogeys. So that's going to end up with a much higher DK score. So I don't really mind this bogey avoidance stat so much. So if it's there and the birdies are also there, then I like that guy. But for instance, a guy like Jason Duffner down here that's at 118 in bogey avoidance, but he makes 23 birdies. I don't really care so much as long as he's making the birdies. So of all of the stats that I'm looking at this week, this bogey avoidance one is the only one that I'm discounting a little bit.
Right, which I would agree with. Let's check out the chat here real quick. We got a couple people in here, which is good. But I agree with you what you say there. Bogey avoidance isn't going to be. That's why I didn't put in my key stats. It's just there. I did want to look up while you said that the water hazards because I forgot to look at that because last week a lot of guys fell off, especially Kisner. I did want to mention this before we start getting into the actual plays here, but Kevin Kisner double bogeyed 18 on a. I don't think it was he hit water, but he that completely flipped the Millie Maker. The guy in third place because of that double bogey jumped to first. And the guy in first dropped to third, like pretty much flip-flopped. So that was a loss of like $885,000 on that last hole for Kisner. It was insane.
Wow.
But we do have Kaheem Jones here said Kisner went from 7K to 11.3. Jeez. And that's simply because the field is so weak. You're looking at the only 2 guys that you can even put in the same breath as guys like Spieth, Rory, and Matsuyama, and just Ricky, and these guys are Kisner and Stenson, and they're priced like that. You can't have everyone below 10K or anything like that. So they're the only 2 that should be that high priced, and in this field, there's nothing wrong with their price tag, in my opinion. It's just the narrative and the motivation for these guys, and Kevin Kisner's very long week last week. I mean, that was a grueling course. I've never been to Quail Hollow before last weekend, but after watching these guys play it in 95-degree heat, Man, especially because these guys got to wear long pants. It's a course, or not a course. It's a PGA rule. They can't wear shorts, obviously. So these guys are burning up. I mean, I don't know why Kisner's even in this event, but supposedly he's got local ties, even though he's from Georgia. But who knows? We'll see. Or he's from Aiken, South Carolina, actually, not Georgia. But let's get into it here. We can just start it right there at the top. First, before that, I do want to go into a couple of Vegas odds here. I haven't been paying too much attention to line movement. I will say that obviously Hendrik Stenson and Kevin Kisner at the top, as they should be, of course. Stenson at 12-1 with Kisner at 14. I will say that with Stenson being the world-class golfer supposedly that he is not getting the love that guys generally get. Let me mute my phone here. Sorry, guys. He's at 12-1. Usually, like Rory last week in a PGA Championship with guys like 20 guys that are world-class golfers, he was like 6-1. So you can see that there's a little hesitancy to put Stenson at a great chance to win, and that's in two reasons in my belief. Before we get into the actual plays, it's Stenson has to play. I mentioned this a little bit to Caleb. I couldn't find the actual information, all like to the T on this information, but Henrik Stenson they have to play 15 events, PGA Tour specific events, because Henrik Stenson does play a few Euro events. But you have to play 15 specific PGA Tour events to retain your tour card, even if you win majors like he has. He won the British Open, so he has like 5 years of automatic eligibility. But supposedly that doesn't count if you don't play your 15 events each year. And you guessed it by me bringing that up. This is his 15th event if he plays it. I haven't been able to find the news if he has to finish the event, like either miss the cut or go through Sunday. So he may just have to tee it up and then could withdraw, and it might count. I don't know. I doubt that the PGA would allow that, but we saw Daniel Berger do that last year with the WGC. You get $50,000 for just teeing off, and he would just tee off and he left. That's what Berger did. He ended up donating that money to charity, I read later. But anyway, I'm not going to be playing Stenson, so I'll wrap that into the DFS plays here. I won't be playing Stenson just because at a guy at his level to be above 10-1 odds in a field like this, there's something a little fishy. I'm going to trust Vegas here. And to bring my stats into it, he does rank pretty well, but let's be honest, it is a shitty field. He should rank pretty well. But there are a couple outliers that I need to bring up. Around the green, he's 94th, and this is in the last 24 rounds. 94th and 109th in par 5 scoring from 500 to 550. This will be a birdie fest. So these par 5s, both of them are going to be birdied, possibly eagled. They should be. And for Stenson to be ranked in the bottom below 100 in the field, this isn't overall, this is in the current field, then that's very alarming. His course history is abysmal. It doesn't show up. We did have a little not argument, but a little discussion about that as Fantasy National they didn't acknowledge course history, but he did have a withdrawal in 2012, and I think also 2 missed cuts before that, but that's getting real deep. This is a world-class golfer. I mean, looking back more than 5 years, it's shaky. In my opinion, I don't like to look back more than 5 years, but unless there's a long period of time of him keeping up similar results. So for 7 years, if he had missed cuts going back to 2009, then I would take that into consideration. But he hasn't played this event since 2012, I believe, so I'm not going to take that into too much consideration. The only reason I would be playing Stenson is the super low ownership, which might happen. So let's just talk about Kisner and Stenson just so we don't get too deep into it. So
sure.
Other than my take on Stenson, he does fit well in good drive percentage and strokes gained approach. He's a very accurate guy. Not a very long hitter or golfer, I guess, but I'm on the fence. I don't want to play him because it does limit the guys you can take after him. There are guys in the 8 to 9K range that I could make a whole lineup with and feel a little more comfortable than having to drop down to 7.3 or below. Mm-hmm. So I also want to say this, guys. I would not play cash this week. Do what you do. If you're real key on managing your bankroll, then go ahead and play cash. But all these golfers are volatile, minus Byung-Han An, really, who's made 18 of 20 cuts, I think, this year, or something similar. Only missed 2 cuts, I think. So it's really tough to play cash, in my opinion. Do what you guys feel, but I'm going to be playing GPPs only. Only 2 or 3 lineups. Just I'm going to keep my exposure limited. And what's your take on Stenson? And then you can go into Kisner, and then I'll respond.
Yeah, so I mean, you've already touched on why you shouldn't play Stenson. So I'm not necessarily saying to play him. I'm just going to give you the other angle there. What we want on this course is accurate birdie makers, and as we can see, he's number one in my model for that. I noticed he's not number one in your model because you're looking at some other stats. I'm not really looking at those stats this week. I'm looking at guys who can keep the ball in the fairway and make a lot of birdies, and that's exactly what he does. That's what he's really good at doing. You know, he's notorious for not using his driver, for using his 3-wood for everything because he's more accurate with it. And so, and he's also, I looked at some of his recent results. Everybody thinks he's playing horribly, and he hasn't played like world-class golf lately, but he has been sneakily okay. And so I think if you wanted to take a shot on Stenson, this is going to be my rule of thumb this week. I don't want to play guys who are expensive and chalky. I just don't want to play them because it doesn't give me any advantage in such a field with so much volatility. But I don't think Stenson's going to be chalky at all because, for one thing, everybody thinks that he's playing terribly. And for another thing, if you look at all of the metrics that we have to look at ownership, either on Fantasy National or FanShare or any of those things that we look at to kind of get an idea for ownership, he's the lowest owned guy in this range by quite a bit by projections. And so I think if you can get Henrik Stenson under like 15% ownership and he top tens, I don't think he even has to win for you this week. If he top tens, I think you'll be okay in a field like this. So it's a leverage play. I think he can win, and I think that he can top 10, but he could also be Henrik Stenson and just go out and miss the cut. So there's risk involved. If you like Stenson, if you're the player like me who likes to jump on guys when nobody else is on them and play them, especially since we're doing a GPP, or we recommend doing a GPP week this week, he's a GPP play, I think. I think that Kisner is the opposite of that. Kisner, I think, is going to come in a little bit more owned, maybe not as much as the guys right underneath him. So he's still kind of in that range. Kisner, I just don't like Kisner. I don't like him whenever he's expensive. I didn't mind playing him last week, and I thought last week would have been a really good week to play him, and I almost did play him at 7K. I almost did that, and I swapped him out for somebody I thought had a better chance of making more birdies, and it didn't work out for me. But I don't like him at 11-3. I mean, I think Kevin Kisner, because of his game, he really does need to go out and win, because I think he's going to be highly owned enough to the point that, you know, you're not going to gain an advantage on the field unless he does put up enough points to win. So that would be my take. I would fade Kisner and take Stenson in GPPs if you are so inclined. But I see your point too, that if you fade both of them, you can afford a lot of guys, which is why I think that Stenson's going to be really lowly owned, because I don't think I think a lot of people are going to want to go down into that 9K, 8K range and load up on those guys.
Right. And honestly, when I first looked at the pricing, that was the first thing that popped into my head, was I'm going below 10K to start my roster. Maybe Jason Duffner, we'll get into that 10K range. So let's just actually go straight into that right now.
Sure.
We do have a few things in the chat. Let's see here. We do have a few, like, talking about Ben Crane. We'll definitely get to him. I actually do like Ben Crane this week. We'll get to him down when we get to that lower price. Yeah, so we do have a question on Grayson Murray. We'll cover him in a second. I loved him in weekend golf last weekend. I played him in my weekend lineup.
Smart.
Yeah, man, long hitters like that. I mean, you're really paying for those Eagles. So let's see. Yeah, we're pretty much caught up on those high price guys. So let's get my take on Kisner real quick. It's tough for me to play a guy. You hit it right on the head. He's going to be higher owned than Stenson. We can guarantee that. He's in a tough position in terms of playing him in DFS. He's first off, he has the most sits on all of Fanshare Sports right now. It's actually not reloading
That's
for me for some
interesting.
reason. Yes, for some reason it's not. I'm gonna have to reload the page here. He has 8.
Yeah, that might suppress his ownership a little bit too.
Right, just give me 1 second here. Actually, I had to refresh it here, and let's see. Okay, yes, he has 8 sits next to Stenson with 6, and Webb Simpson surprisingly with 5, who it seems everyone likes this week. But Kisner is just played the one of the hardest events, the hardest major so far this year in terms of scoring, and was winning. Shot 267s Thursday and Friday, and then just fell apart during the weekend. Hit a couple water hazards and just wasn't able to come back. While guys like Molinari and not really Matsuyama, but JT just kind of kept climbing instead of just falling off, which we haven't seen Kisner really fall off like that before. So I don't know his motivation here, and I don't feel comfortable throwing a single dart or 2 entries, or even if I'm doing a 3-entry max, which I might do as well. I will not. I don't feel comfortable playing Kisner in any 3. I'd have to be doing the. Shout out to Greg Stewart, by the way, who's always chopping up about golf in the sweatshop there in our Facebook group. But he said he might max enter the 20-entry max $4 or something like that, or 10, put 10 in there. I don't have a problem putting 1 or 2 Kisners if you're making 10 or 20, but if you're making 1, 2, or 3 and you want to quote unquote make a core, Kisner would not be in my core. There's just too much. He's not really playing for anything. He's already won this year. He's cemented in the FedEx Cup standings. Even if he withdraws or anything like that, he's gonna make the FedEx Cup playoffs. I'm not worried about that. So no Kisner for me. If I was making more lineups, like I said, I would have some Kisner exposure, but I will not be doing that this week. Just in case for the people that do want to play him, his stats, he is my number 1 ranked guy in overall out of my 10 stats, which does say a lot, but I am willing to bite the bullet on this. He is top 47 in all 10 of my stats, lowest being around the green at 47. Birdie's 46th. He's 3rd in good drive percentage, 8th in par 5 scoring from 500 to 550 yards, 11th in tee to green, 9th in putting, which is overall, those are all very good. But I just can't do it. The narrative is telling me I can't do it, and that's what kind of makes you question yourself as a DFS player sometimes. Is you gotta have a short memory for these guys, and sometimes my bias comes to bite me in the ass. But I'm gonna take the chance. If I'm only making these 3 lineups, I'm gonna fade him. If he misses the cut, I think I'm looking good because I don't think Stenson's going to hit value for his price either. So I'm gonna take that risk, and I'm not gonna play either of them in my 3 lineups. But let's get
I think
down to
that's
that.
solid.
Right? Yeah, that was my first take, and I'm gonna go with it. Yeah, because honestly, when we get down under 7K, I mean, it's a shit show. So we'll get into some of those names down there, but there's not many like there was at the PGA Championship with Finau at 7K, and who didn't actually do that well, but he should have. There's not like that this week. You're not going to be like, okay, this guy should top 10 or something like that. So we look at the 10K range. Obviously, not as many guys as we had last week as it was a major. So we only have Jason Duffner, Bill Haas, and Webb Simpson in the 10K range. Webb Simpson, just like last week, as this event is at the Sedgefield Country Club in Greensboro, North Carolina. The hint there, North Carolina. Webb Simpson is a native of North Carolina. And surprisingly, he has 2 daughters, one named Willow. And guess what his second daughter's name is?
Please tell me it's not Sedgefield.
Well, no. It's Wyndham. She was named after this event. So, yeah, it has not.
Sedgefield Simpson just doesn't have a ring to it.
Yeah. I probably should have, instead of saying this was, I didn't leak.
I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's because this is his first tour event win ever was at the Wyndham Classic or Championship. Okay. I keep saying Classic, but if I say Classic, I mean the Championship, guys. Wyndham's the only thing that matters. So this was his first win on tour. He named his daughter after it. He's going to be well, what's your take? I think he's going to, before we get into
Mega Chalk.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say he's the highest owned guy
Mega Chalk. And I don't like Webb Simpson as Mega Chalk, but you can't argue with his course. I mean, his event history. Like, the dude just consistently churns out good finishes here.
Right. If you
So I
are
don't know what to do with him.
right. I will say this, guys. If you are playing cash, I put Webb Simpson in and I bite the bullet. That's where I start. Webb Simpson. If you want to play cash, I highly suggest you don't. But if you want to go that way and just put in a single entry double up $5 or something just to have some fun, then I'd start with Webb Simpson personally. Just to give a couple stats, reasons to play him. Second and around the green, seventh in overall DK points, which is big for a guy at this price. You really need those DK points. So even if he doesn't win, he should rack up the points. 12th in strokes gained tee to green. 16th in good drive percentage. And then a couple reasons not to play him. Par 5 scoring not too good. 77th, not something you need better than at a golfer this highly priced. You need good scoring there. 65th in strokes gained approach. This is all last 24 rounds on all courses. And by the way, this is just like guys, this is just like last week. The grass they'll be putting on is Bermuda grass, which seemed to struggle. A lot of guys seemed to struggle last week with putting. Weren't as many birdies. Obviously, the winning score was 8 under with JT. I expected it maybe to touch 10. I didn't think it would go any higher than 11, but to see it at 8, that kind of surprised me just a little bit. But anyway, Webb Simpson, just for me, he's 115th as well in proximity from 150 to 175, which should be the average distance of our second shots here on these par 4s mainly. Yeah, so I will be fading Webb Simpson in tournaments. I am just like Alex Rutitsky here. I'm going to be starting below 10K. He wants to start below 9,100. That's interesting. We can talk about that, but I will be fading Webb Simpson. The only guy in this range other than Duffner, well, there's only 3 of them, so I don't know why I said other than Duffner. I just gave it away. I will be playing a little Duffner, I think, in one of my lineups. I think he's going to be the lowest owned out of the top 5 here. Bill Haas also has a local connection. I think he's from Charlotte as well. I don't know if he has any ties to Greensboro specifically, but local statewide, so he's probably going to have some family out watching him. He's 116th, one spot after Webb in 150 to 175 proximity, but nothing in the top 10 except for around the green. He's 10th in my key stats here. So what's your take on that range? And
I think Webb cracks 25% ownership this week, and to me that's an auto fade because in the same range you've got Bill Haas and Duffner, and I'd rather play either one of those two guys because I think they're going to come in under 20, depending on what you're playing in, and I think they're going to be kind of very close in ownership. And let me make a case for Haas. I made the case against Haas last week because he doesn't make enough birdies. And if you notice over here, it says 53 birdies made. And I'm sure if we had DK points in this one, it would be pretty low. But something really interesting happens whenever you put Bill Haas on this course. I just talked about how good Webb Simpson's course history is. If there's somebody who's better at this event, it's Bill Haas. So let me pull this up. His worst finish was last year. In the last 5 years, his worst finish was tied for 22nd. And then before that, it was 6th, 2nd, 20th, 7th. And then the most interesting thing to me is on this course in 20 rounds for Bill Haas, he is 13th in DK points in this field, which is high for Bill Haas, very high. And he's 9th in birdies in 20 rounds. So all of his stats that we don't normally like about him that are too low normally, they all go up on this course. And if I'm going to get an ownership discount and take a 10K guy, I think I'm taking Bill Haas this week.
Right, because that is the ancient thing that Bill Haas is the par machine like Furyk and Kevin Streelman, who I also like this week. But Bill Haas, you said it yourself. I'm glad you covered that because I would have forgotten. He seems to be an actual golfer, a scoring machine when it comes to this course. I like it. Good point there. Any thought on Duffner real quick? I'm just curious because I haven't heard much about him, and I want to. Yeah, what you got?
I think Duffner comes in about the same ownership. The only problem that I have with Duffner, I'm back on Is this back? Oh, this is back on the normal. Okay. Only problem that I have with Duffner is I think it was course actually. Where was it? Yeah. So for some weird reason, his DK points are way down, and his driving and his fairways are way down on this course. And he's played 12 rounds here, so it's a little bit shaky. So I don't know that I have a huge problem with him, but I found it really interesting that Bill Haas, his scoring metrics go up and Duffner's scoring metrics go down. I wonder if it has something to do with this bogey avoidance stat right now that he's doing.
Shit, yeah, 118. Not good at all. I see that. Yeah, I was looking at I was looking at his last 24 rounds here, and Duffner 122nd in putting, 124th around the green. But he's 8th in tee to green, 8th in DK points, 5th in approach, and 10th off the tee with 18th good drive. Like he's top 23 in every stat except for proximity and those two super red ones. And
this was the tiebreaker for me. I remembered now. It says course history. It's tied for 22nd, just like Bill Haas was last week, or last year, and then 51st. Didn't play 14, 13, then a 7th back in 2012. So he hasn't done anything recently here, but he's shown that he has top 10 upside. So if you feel like Duffner's recent form is where it should be, which I kind of feel like it might be, his form is good enough that he could post a really good score here. I think you could get him and Haas both at decently low ownership for different reasons, but decently low for this range, this 10 to 11 range. So yeah, if we're playing anybody up top here, it would be one of those guys. I think for you it's Duffner. For me it's Haas. So you could go either way.
Right. Well, I do like Haas. I mean, I'm big on the course history, so I really like that. It's hard to ignore that. It's just I think Haas is going to come in at higher ownership. If I had to try to project it myself, I'd say Haas is probably at about 20%, while Duffner probably comes in at 12 to 14. So I don't know if it's worth taking that 5 to 6%.
I've got Haas in the 12 to 14 range too.
Ooh.
So I think he's going to come in low. He just missed a cut, or didn't miss a cut. He just played really bad at the PGA. Did he miss the cut? I think he did. Did he miss the cut last week? I can't remember.
I don't remember seeing him on the weekend on hole 12.
I think he did. I think he
golfed with Rory. I think he made the cut. He made the cut because I think he golfed with Rory on hole 12 when I was out there. So let me just.
Okay, he probably did. He didn't do anything last week, and everybody kind of knows him as the plotter. And I think we all have been primed for this to be a birdie fest, and so I think he's going to fly under the radar a little. Now, I know he's going to be owned because he's been talked about and everybody knows about his course history, so he probably won't. But I think if you are a casual player and you see Bill Haas up there next to Kisner, Simpson, Moore, Stanley, Cawley, those guys, I think you're gonna not go with Haas over those guys.
Right.
I think the same thing about Duffner too. Like nobody really likes to roster Jason Duffner, despite how good he is for fantasy. He just doesn't feel like he's going to be good for fantasy.
Right. Honestly, the only reason I was really big on Duffner was pure ownership. Like I this week I really want to have a guy that has a strong putter, and to see him at 122, that does bring me off a little bit. But at the same time, I don't know. I think there's going to be.
You could be right, but.
Right. Well, I think there's going to be. My goal is to not try to drop too low in price, and I think when you're looking at 7,500 and above, I think a lot of the same guys are going to be talked about. I mean, once you get below 7,500, then it's a complete shit show, and I think everyone's going to be in between like 3 to 7% owned, like almost everyone. There's no one that stands out as like supreme value, except maybe like a couple guys that aren't really value because they're in terrible form, but they're like better golfers than what they're priced at overall. Like Ryan Palmer at 7,300 is a little questionable, but he has been absolutely shit this so far in the last couple months. So that's why it's that low. But anyway, great take there. I agree with you. I don't think there's anywhere else to go in this range in terms of a couple entries in the tournament. I do think as I mentioned, that Webb Simpson is a quality cash play, but even Bill Haas is a good cash play. But Duffner GPP only, as that's all I'm playing this week.
If you want to go really contrarian, I think you could start Duffner Haas, and then you play one guy right around 7, and you can fit 275 guys. I think that's going to be a super low-owned lineup this week as a whole.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that actually. Let's see here.
I just did.
Oh, you were on DK. All right.
Yeah. So what happens when you take both of those guys is you end up with about 73 and change per player. So you can take a 7K guy and then jump up and take 275 guys, or a 75, a 76, something like that. And I think of this top range, I think the top range, other than Webb and maybe Kisner, is going to be low owned anyways compared to the 9 and the 8K range. And so if you just totally skip the 9 and the 8K range, I think you're going to have a very differentiated lineup for a deep GPP. Like if you want to throw this in a 150 lineup contest this week, then I think that could be a really solid way to go, because Duffner and Haas both could top 10 this week.
Oh yeah, definitely Haas, of course. Duffner's just a good golfer in a weak field, and I don't think he's going to garner the. I don't want to say the ownership he should, because his form hasn't been good, but I mean, did win the Memorial 4 tournaments ago that he appeared in, but I don't know. You're getting me more on Haas, and I see, because if he is under 20% of Bill Haas, because I think he's going to be the second highest owned on the entire slate, or not the entire slate, sorry, above 10K behind Webb Simpson. But if Kisner comes in higher owned than Bill Haas, I would be way more confident on playing Bill Haas, because I'm almost certain he will top 20. I know that's not really a hot take, maybe a warm take, we'll call it, but I don't know. Let's get down to that.
I mean, you could be right about the Haas ownership. It could go both ways. I just really feel like Haas perennially goes lower owned. And I think you could, especially if you wanted to pair him, that's why I said as a whole, if you wanted to pair him with Duffner Haas and then a couple of like 4 guys in the 7K range, you're going to have a very different lineup than the majority of the field this week. And I'm actually kind of liking it, just off the top. Like I've put 5 of 6 guys in that are on my list this week. And so we'll get to them a little bit later, but I think you could do it. And I might go that route this week. I don't know that I like Duffner enough, but I might.
Right. All right. So good discussion there. So let's get into that 9K range here. Not that many guys, so we can just cover the whole 9K range. Only 6 guys, maybe 7. Six. All right. Sorry. Yeah.
6. Yeah.
All right. So right off the bat, my favorite in this entire range is Ryan Moore in terms of game theory play. I am worried that he's garnering late week ownership, because his stats are absolute shit the last 24 rounds. Like his only good event recently was last week at the PGA Championship. He is over 100th in 4 of my 10 key stats, almost 5, which is like I'm sorted by price right now. So
am I.
Yeah, if you look at my rankings, no one above 8,500 is worse than 29th in my key stats, except for Ryan Moore, who's 80th. But this is my last 24 rounds, so there's a lot of those last 3 events in there before the PGA Championship. But anyway, 144th. I think there's only 146 guys in the field, so almost dead last and around the green. 132nd in birdies, 127th in DK points. That just screams missed cut. But 119th putting. He does do well on par 5 scoring, 19th nonetheless, 10th in good drive. So I really like that. He also, I think when I put it on, or if I put it specific to Sedgefield, I think he's like top 2 or 3 in the model. My thing's been taking a while to load, but
he shoots up.
Right, yeah. My thing takes a while to load, so I'm not going to do it right now. But other than
He goes
Ryan,
from he's much higher ranked in mine. He goes from 27th to second in my model whenever I go to Sedgefield.
right? And I think on a course, this is a great course to look at course history because it doesn't take if a guy's in poor form. This is the course to bring them out of poor form. It's an easy course. It's almost a web.com tour event almost, honestly. I mean, it's the level of it takes the skill level of a web.com event. Like, this should be easy for most of these guys, especially Ryan Moore and anyone above him. So I can get behind Ryan Moore, especially in GPP. I wouldn't play him in cash just because in cash I mainly like to stick to stats, and it doesn't fit. But right below him, Keegan Bradley. I'm going to play him in one of my 2 or 3 lineups. I will tell you that again right now. He is first in strokes gained off the tee, as I mentioned. First again in strokes gained tee to green. I think he's solid. And then there's only 2 other guys that I'm going to look at. And shout out to ACP who's out here in the chat right now. He loves Kyle Stanley this week, as many should. This is an accuracy course. He is known as the accuracy guy. 4th in good drives, 3rd in strokes gained off the tee, 4th in tee to green. But I will not be playing Kyle Stanley this week. I don't know. I don't see the upside, honestly. I know he can win it, so there is up. Like, I'm kind of contradicting myself because of course he can win the event. He's won an event this year already. I just don't see him being able to put up a -20 or something like that. I'd rather play guys below him like Bud Cauley or even honestly Grayson Murray. I like a little bit more, which is a hot take, I guess. But what's your take there? I'm pretty much playing anyone but Kyle Stanley, and I won't be playing James Hahn either.
What do you, if you had to project, what do you think Stanley's ownership is going to be this week?
See, I think it's going to be low, and that's why I'm a little nervous about fading him. But I don't
exactly. That's what I'm thinking. I think it's going to be lower than Cauley. I don't know if it's going to be lower than Moore. And so I don't like playing Kyle Stanley because he always checks out on every course, so it never counts. Like, it's never like, oh, he's a great fit for this course. I mean, he's a great fit for every course. So you mean, like, take your pick. He's like playing roulette sometimes with guys like that. But when he's not chalk, I feel like that's the time to play him. And I don't know that I'm going to, but I mean, if there was ever a time to play Kyle Stanley, it's when he's not the chalk. He might be high enough owned that it doesn't matter this week. I mean, he's not going to be – I don't think he's going to be under 10% owned. So it's still one of those things to where, you know, Moore is my favorite. I wanted to start all of my lineups with Moore. And so I think in the lineup I was just making with Haas in it, I think I've swapped out Duffner for Moore, and I like that a little better. I love Cauley this week, but I don't love Cauley as chalk. So I'm fading him. Bradley, I think, is solid to take a shot on. Like we were talking about before, we even went live. Nobody likes playing Keegan Bradley. It's just like nobody likes playing Henrik Stenson. But Keegan Bradley, whenever I rank out my model, he's 13th in my model. And then whenever I change this over here to scoring relative to par to easy in my model, which is what this course is going to be, he shoots up to number 1. So Keegan Bradley in weak fields is a thing, and he plays really, really well. So Ryan Moore or Keegan Bradley, you can kind of take your pick. I feel like either one of those guys could be a leverage play this week in the 9K range. And then Grayson Murray, I don't know. I think everybody's going to be kind of on Grayson Murray after last week. And again, if a guy's chalk this week, I'm just fading him because I can't afford to have chalk in my lineup this week in a field this volatile. I don't have an opinion on James Hahn. I think he's going to be somewhat chalky too. So that's my take on the 9K range.
Right. I do want to add that I switched. I switched here. Where are we at here? Let me find my. All right. Yeah. Switched it to Bermuda grass, and it turns out over the last 24 rounds that Kyle Stanley actually is 3rd in my key stats, making a huge jump. Wait, I got to go off Sedgefield because I was looking at Sedgefield here. So he doesn't have the best course history at Sedgefield, but Last year he got a T14, and the year before that was a T50. So he's getting better at this event. I did want to say something that he's like first in like 3 of my 10 key stats and on Bermuda grass. So let me see here. Just give me 1 second. It's loading here. But while that loads, I did bring up some weather. All right, it's up here because do have a concern for rain. Let me just bring this up real quick here. Scattered thunderstorms. Shoot, I need to bring up Wind Finder where it gives me hour by hour here. Oh, there we go, hourly. But we'll get into that, guys. We'll actually also get into that so we don't have any we don't stop and start and stuff like that. But Kyle Stanley is third in my key stats when it comes to Bermuda greens, but his putting is 134th. So that's a little interesting. He's first in tee to green, second in DK points, which is very interesting. 10th in birdies, 5th in good drives, second in approach, and first strokes gained off the tee. So you said it very well. And 40th, which is not shabby in par 5 scoring from 500 to 550 because he's not known as the longest hitter. He's more of an accuracy guy. He's not very good around the greens, but I think the greens should be pretty easy to get to, especially if guys are clubbing down, which many of them would, especially the accuracy guys. But actually, I think I can get behind a little Kyle Stanley. I might let me sort by salary again one time. I might, as you said it, I might fade Bud Cauley here. He hasn't done much. I think he hasn't even played in a couple weeks, maybe a few weeks. I haven't seen his name up too much. Okay, never mind. He played at the PGA Championship and got he got a T33, and then he didn't play in before it was the John Deere. He got a T12. So, he didn't play at the Bridgestone. He didn't play at the RBC Canadian Open. He didn't play at the Open. He didn't play at the Barbasol. So, interesting. No, if Bud Cauley, you did say he was going to be chalky, and I agree. A lot of people are talking about him, especially the touts. Everyone's saying he's underpriced for the field. He's first in the proximity stat that I'm looking at, 150 to 175. But I can get behind a fade of Bud Cauley and getting on Kyle Stanley. I think as this being an accuracy course, if he comes under 15% owned, I'm gonna call that a steal because this would fit his game. I'm just worried he won't be able to really keep up. Like he has times where he kind of falls into a slump where he might bogey, like birdie, bogey, or like simple stuff like that. I am bringing up the past results here. Last year, Hideki was in this field. That's crazy. I didn't know that, but he got a T3 behind obviously Siwoo and Luke fucking Donald. But Bud Cauley got a T10 last year. Let's see, Kisner also T10. I'm trying to find Stanley. There's Stanley. So he got a T14, all rounds under 70, which I need to bring up as DK gives you a nice bonus if all your rounds are under 70, and this being a par 70, all you got to do is shoot under, which should happen. If you look at the top like 20, only 2 or 3 guys shot a 70. Like Cabrera Bello on Sunday shot a 70. Then all the way down to Kisner shot a 70 on Thursday. Finished with a 63 on Sunday. So guys aren't really shooting 70s if they're finishing in the top 20. Duffner finished T22. But a lot of these guys, these are average golfers finishing well, like Brett Stegmeyer, T5. Obviously, Luke Donald finished second. So this is an event where you have to play the best guys, and you shouldn't be playing the quote-unquote best guys because you need to get contrarian. I think Kyle Stanley, as we mentioned, would be contrarian, but not to spend too much time there. I just have a little response to your Grayson Murray thing there. I do think a lot more people are going to be on him this week. His form is hot, to say the least. It's hot like when I was in high school with the high school girls, if you know what I mean. But, yeah, Grayson Murray is an all right play. He's volatile, though. So to see him above 9K, none of these guys up top are really volatile. I mean, Ryan Moore, of course, just because he's been piss poor form the last 4 weeks, but other than the PGA Championship, of course. Keegan Bradley as well a little bit, but other than that, Grayson Murray, hands down, is the one that can shoot himself out of it immediately. I mean, I played him a few weeks ago where he had like a quadruple bogey and then withdrew. So it can happen. You don't know how he worked real hard last week to try to stay in contention. His first ever major in his home state. So I don't know. In an event like this, though, it's just similar to the Barbasol where he won that event. One of the weakest fields all year. He can win this event with how weak this field is. So I'm going to limit my exposure. There's definitely not a core guy, but I don't know. His stats don't look good on Bermuda. 3 stats over 100, 6th in birdies, though, 6th in strokes gained off the tee. I don't really have a take either way. I've played him before. I like him because he's from my home state. The event's in North Carolina. He did well in a super tough course. It's all about how much energy he's got left, honestly, and that's almost impossible to predict. So I'm kind of mellow on him. I don't know. Yeah, so let's get down. Yeah, no James Hahn for me either. I think he's going to be very highly owned. Didn't do super well last week because of he didn't win the Wells Fargo at the same course. But obviously, as we learned, the course was way different than what the Wells Fargo was doing. So James Hahn, no consideration for me there. And then we get down. My favorite play on the entire slate, who might garner some heavy ownership, Byung-Han An. Just very consistent. If you're making a cash game lineup, guys, I know I've said not to, but if you are, I'd start either Bill Haas, Webb Simpson, one or the other, and Byung-Han An is my second guy. He's just very consistent. Only 2 missed cuts all year. 2nd in tee to green, 4th DK points, 12th in birdies, 6th in strokes gained off the tee. Doesn't really have any poor stat except proximity. Around the green kind of makes up for it, though, at 46th. What's your take on Byung-Han An, and if anyone else you want to cover in that range? I do like Streelman as well, so we will get to him. But what do you think about Byung-Han An?
Yeah, and this is the range where I'm going to stop talking about everybody in the range. So, you actually put me on earlier, and I like him. He checks out. I don't think I've ever played him ever, and that's weird. But I just never have. So I don't think I'm going to start this week because right underneath him is a guy that I think is going to be way less owned, and has maybe more upside, and that's Danny Lee. I like Danny Lee this week, and I would play Danny Lee this week. If you look at what was it? Was it his course history that really? Yeah, no, not his course history, just his recent form. I think he obviously had that injury earlier in the season. I think that he has played well enough lately to kind of erase some of that for me. He got cut in the PGA Championship. He played all right at the Canadian, and then I don't remember why he withdrew from the John Deere. Before that, dude was on a tear, and I don't know. I would take a shot. He is risky. He is really risky. So I don't recommend you play him, but I might take a shot on Danny Lee. I like Danny Lee as a player, and I've played him a lot, and he's won me quite a bit of money. So this is one of those player bias things. A guy who I do not like, even though he checks all the boxes, is Chez Reavie, because he is uber chalk.
We're gonna argue there. I know he's uber chalk, yeah, but
uber chalk.
Yeah, probably I don't even want to say probably. He's gonna be the highest owned guy in that range.
I feel like he might be the 2nd highest owned on the slate.
Yeah, his Vegas odds are getting there too. That's what I was real worried about. I wanted to my pivot off of him, not to get too deep into it. My pivot off of him was going to be Streelman. Yeah, they got Reavie at 40-1. That's 10th best. Obviously, he's not the 10th highest price.
He's played this course 10 times. Take a look at this. Look at these numbers. 66 in good drives, 106th in bogey avoidance, 109th in approach. This is all on Sedgefield. 108th in tee to green, 113th in birdies. He's 4th in fairways gained and 49th in tee off the tee, so that's okay. But 117th in DK points. This was a little bit of a different Chez Reavie than the one that we're seeing lately. So form's different, kind of a different player. But it's worth noting that the dude has been awful on this course. And for a guy that's going to get that much ownership to have shown me nothing on the course that he's going to play in this event, I think it's an auto fade.
Right. I will say this, though. He is at 40-1 now, which is the same as 9.5K Keegan Bradley, 9.3K Kyle Stanley. He has better odds than Grayson Murray at 9.1K. Man, you're right. I think he's going
not
to
even
be
a good bet.
Uber chalk. Yeah. No, I wouldn't bet it. Yeah, you can't bet Ches Reavie at 40-1. No way. Even Danny Lee's at 55-1. So, I was.
I'm not saying don't play him. I'm saying my strategy this week is fade the chalk, and he fits that tab so nicely.
Yeah, this is a very volatile week where playing the quote unquote best plays on paper isn't going to win you all the money. I think. I agree with you. He is going to be super chalk, but for me, because honestly, if you take Sedgefield out of the equation, he's easily top 5 best stats guys. I'm just looking at the last 12 rounds.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, literally
he rates out fantastic.
Top 20 in everything except for putting, proximity, and strokes gained off the tee. So I do want to look at course history because I think guys that haven't been doing that. Yeah, it's for ownership like that, I can see the fade, and you're making me get on that fade train a little bit more right now.
If you're playing multiple lineups, play him. But if I'm doing single bullet this week, probably I might do 2. But if I do 1, he's not in it. If I do 2, he's not in it. If I do 5, I might put him in 1.
Right. Honestly, that whole 8K range, you can make a case to play because they're all going to be very low owned. I'm not going to say I like them all because I'm only making 2 lineups, but my favorite is Streelman, other than Byung-Han An, but we're talking below 8,500 there. Those 4 or 5 guys there, or 6 actually.
Streelman checks out. He looks pretty good.
He's one of those guys that's known as the par machine, but on this course, I actually haven't looked at his course history yet, to be honest. But
it's decent. He's only played 4 rounds here, though.
Hopefully it's not 2 missed cuts. Hopefully it's just 1 event. But I'm gonna get behind. I'm gonna be playing Streelman, and I think
it was in 2012.
Ooh,
that was the round he played.
Yeah, that's
37th then.
That goes against my rules there. I don't like to look at course history 5 years and farther, really. But
yeah, I mean, he's looking good right now. Do you think? Not to interrupt you too much, this is the only other guy I want to talk about in the 8K range. Do you think Chris Stroud stays hot?
I don't. I think I don't. The thing for me is I don't know what. I don't want to say ownership is why I would play him, but I actually think he's going to garner more ownership than he should at that price. I don't
Probably
feel comfortable playing a guy like that at, what is he, 8.6, right, or something like that?
Somewhere, yeah.
Let me just double check here. Yeah, 8.6.
This is really interesting. Out of 418 people on Fantasy National, which I would assume are decent fantasy players, only 11% of them favorited Chris Stroud.
That's not very much at all, especially at that price tag.
They're calculating his ownership at under 4%.
Oh my! Yeah, I haven't checked that. I think
it's going to be higher than that. I think it'll be higher than that. But it's really interesting for a guy that is as hot as Chris Stroud, coming in with a ton of confidence after playing pretty well in a major.
Yeah, his course history is awful, though. But
he just killed a weak field. Well, he's been awful up until recently. It's kind of the same thing with Ches Reavie. It's like I'm fading him because of ownership, not because of course history. But that course history you almost have to discount because Ches Reavie a year ago is not even the same player.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not saying he's a good play. I was just curious to see if you thought that the streak stays alive.
Right. I don't. I'm personally. There's a little scene that happened. I thought I'd share this real quick. That on the 12th hole there, so that he went with the last group. It was him and Kisner as the last group. So the whole, pretty much everyone was watching his group at the end there. And Matsuyama JT right before them was the second most popular group, arguably the most popular. They're both pretty much the same. But right after Kisner saved par on the 12th hole, everyone just got up and tried to watch the 13th, go to the 13th. And Stroud's caddy motioned to the marshals, the people that try to get us to shut up when they're about to putt and stuff like that, for the people that don't know what I'm saying by marshal. But these told them, like, can you get them to stop? And so the marshals got everyone to stop moving, and he has like a 4-foot putt, and he shanked it. So I think pressure gets to him, and I don't want to say he had a meltdown because he hung in there. He finished 9th, I think it was, but he was tied for the lead most of Sunday and just kind of faltered a little bit. I don't want to call it luck, but I don't think this week he's going to be able to keep it up, because if I'm fading Kisner based off of, this is personal to me. If I'm fading Kisner based off of, like, not energy, but that's the first word that came to my head, just off of effort, or like how much motivation I guess he has. I don't know. Then I got to do it with Stroud too, even at his price tag. I'm looking at course history and his last like 4 years here. Last year he got a T68, which is almost dead last for the guys that made the cut. Then we got like a missed cut and a couple other performances. I came off of it just looking at stats, but he's got 5 stats, 98th or worse, that I'm looking at. This is all particular to Sedgefield. Birdies 118th, DK points 110th, which is all because of the missed cuts, of course. But terrible in putting, terrible in off the tee, and terrible around the green. He's not top 38 or 39 in anything. His best stat is 38th in approach. So I won't be playing him. But at 4%, it is one of those plays where if you can play him when he's hot and he's under 5% owned, go for it, I guess. But
right, like I said, I'm not. He wasn't really on my radar. But man, if he's going to go overlooked, then it's kind of the same thing as Danny Lee. Like, Danny Lee is projected to be fairly under-owned too. So if you want to take one of those guys as a leverage play, I mean, go for it. But I like Streelman better than Stroud for sure.
Right. Yeah, I agree there 100%. Let me see here. I lost my tab here. Oh, there it is. All right. So the last guy that I think we should cover in that AK, well, there's 2 guys, Scott Brown and Ben Martin. Ben Martin is just a guy that kind of, well, I don't want to say does well in weak fields, because I remember he was like he had like the number 1 odds in the Barracuda, and I bet on him just because he seemed to be super hot at the time, and I think he missed a cut or something stupid like that. But according to Sedgefield specifically, let me just bring it up. I lost it here. He is top 54 in every stat except for around the green, which I won't take into super consideration, because if you're hitting greens and you're hitting fairways, around the green won't matter. But obviously it's not going to happen on 18 out of 18 holes. But nothing stands out in particular. Like, he's in between 20 and 54th in everything. He's not in the top 10 in anything or anything like that. But at 8,800, he's a little down priced compared to the field and what he has been, I guess, like in terms of strength of field. He's an above average golfer, and I don't think he's priced very well. He got a 6th at the Barbasol, a T5 at the Quicken Loans. So very shitty fields, and he's top 10ing. So he missed the cut last year at Wyndham and got a T10 in 2015. I think in 2015 was an amateur at the time, actually, as well. But he hasn't played the last 2 weeks because those are all invitation events. It does worry me he missed the cut at the RBC Canadian Open, which is his most recent event. I think it's a pure GPP play. Yeah, he's playable, exactly. He's tough playable. To say. I just
don't want him on my roster.
Right, that's where I'm at. It's a little shaky. I can't like everybody, but with 2 to 3 lineups, I don't have a problem if you're doing the same thing. If you guys are entering a 3-entry max or throwing in just a few lineups, I don't have a problem with playing Ben Martin in one, maybe pivoting off of Byung-Han An, I guess, or even James Hahn, who I don't like very much. I can see you playing him. I'm not going to – he's not a core guy at all. None of these guys are core guys. Maybe Byung-Han An would be a core guy for me if I had to label a core. But other than that, nothing for me. And then finally, the last guy I want to mention that range was Scotty Brown. Top 87 in every stat. That would be – he's top 60 in everything, actually, except for that proximity stat. He's 87th from 150 to 175. But he's known as the first-round leader. Everyone knows he goes out there and he fucking shoots his ass off and just – he uses all his energy to win the first round and then just kind of slowly teeters away. Or like a few weeks ago, fucking had the tie for the first round and then like 3 holes in was in like T40th because I think like triple bogeyed or something like that. But anyway, I can get behind some Scott Brown, especially at this price in this field. He's in very nice form right now. I'm going to put it at all courses. Oh, actually, let me look at his course history here real quick. He's played 12 rounds. No, he's played more than that. I just have it set as my last 12. He got a T3 in 2015. That looks good. A T33 at 2016. Miscut in 2014 and 2012 as well. Did not play it in 2013. He actually got a T13 at the PGA Championship last week. Pretty unbeknownst or pretty much silent or quiet T13 as well. Missed the cut at the Canadian Open, T25 at the John Deere, and then a miscut at the Greenbrier. So,
yeah, I'm pretty sure CBS did not show a single Scott Brown shot.
Oh, yeah. I watched the cameras, man. On hole 12, man, they just followed Rory in the morning. They had like 4 cameras following him. They followed the Matsuyama JT, and there was one other group in between them. I cannot recall. I have the little pamphlet, actually, with all the tee times for Sunday with Kisner on the front cover because he was leading after 54. I kept as a little token or keepsake, I guess. But anyway, I can get some behind Scott Brown. This week, I got to just say this real quick, guys. This week, you can't feel too strongly on guys because this is such a volatile week. It's tough to say I like this, like I love this guy, I'm playing him all in, that type of thing, because anyone can win this event. There's some FedEx Cup implications. I don't even remember if I mentioned it at the top of the show, but the top 125 guys get into the FedEx Cup playoffs that start next week. If these guys are some of the guys in the top 125 on the borderline, like let's say 110 into 125, can fall out of that range. So it's not just guys between like 126 and 150, let's say, trying to get in there. It's literally that whole little range there that decides if they have to play the entire FedEx Cup playoffs and do very well, or if they don't have to worry too much. It's very tough this week because you don't know what guys are, their mentality, their motivation, how hard they want to go out there. We will talk about Daniel Summerhays because I did read an article, I have it brought up here, that talks about his case in particular. So, and we'll use that as an example, but just to speed it up a little bit, that's the AK range for me. It's going to be Byung-Han An, Ben Martin, and I know you really like Danny Lee. I played him last week, and I'm going to be that guy that says I'm not playing him this week just because he fucked me last week, man. I hate to say it because he's probably going to go out there and do well, at least make the cut this week. I can almost guarantee it, but
that's funny because I didn't even like him last week.
Man, fuck you, dude. Nah, but he's just, man. He goes out there. I shouldn't have played him. It was a fucking sheep move on my part, like a donkey move. I knew in the back of my head, I kind of knew he wouldn't be able to handle the distance, and I just fucked it up. Like, he shot the +5 Thursday, and I was like, all right, the cut line's going to be like +4. So, Danny, all you got to do is shoot even and maybe get a birdie or possibly an eagle. And he goes out there and shoots fucking 7 over on Friday and just shits the bed. So, I'm going to be off of him. I know he's at a good price compared to other guys in this field. He can win the event. He's a cut-making machine, or he has been until obviously last week when he withdrew at the John Deere, I believe it was. But
see, I'm playing him because of guys like you.
Right, yeah, the guys that are going to be off him because he burned them. Yeah, yeah.
That's exactly why I want to play him this week.
Right, and so then Streelman, Scott Brown, and I do like. Oh, I didn't mention this guy. I got to give a shout out to Alex, a friend of the DFS Sweatshop in the group there. He is putting me on Harris English, the lowest guy at 8K, along with Seamus Power. I don't want to cover all these guys. All these guys have merits to go out there and do well, especially Seamus Power, who's like on that in that like 130 range of the FedEx Cup. But Harris English is secretly a top play in my opinion. I'm having trouble coming off Streelman, to be honest, but Harris English's stats do not lie to me. Specifically to Sedgefield, the last 12 rounds, he is killing my stats here. He is, well, killing in a good way, I should say. He is top 23 in all but top 23 in all but 3 stats, and all of them are above 50, better than 56th. 6th in approach, 8th in tee to green, 16th in both birdies and strokes gained off the tee, 30th in good drive percentage. I like that. 23rd in proximity. So I will be playing some Harris English. I will say that. I don't think he can win. I don't think he has the ability to go out there and shoot 20 under. But at 8K, you just really need a top 30, in my opinion, and I think he can do that. He got a 46th last year here, a 31st the year before. Didn't golf it for the 2 years prior and got a T10 in 2012. Did miss the cut at the Canadian Open. But before that, 29th of the Greenbrier, 22nd of the Quicken Loans, 2 pretty weak fields. So at 8K, I can get behind him. Also got a T46 at the U.S. Open for what it's worth. So in a strong field, he held his weight, because I'm pretty sure he was like 6,800, 6,900 then. But I will be fading Sam Saunders, even though Arnold Palmer has his own plaque at the event. Who Sam Saunders is Arnold Palmer's grandson, for those that don't know. No Lucas Glover for me, even though he's probably going to be the lowest owned in there. Shane Lowry is the one I don't have a take hot or cold on. I'm just not going to play him. I don't think he's going to be able to. I don't think Shane Lowry is the guy that beats me. That's why I don't really have a hot take on him. I'm not worried that he's going to win or anything like that. Doesn't have the best form. Only has 4 rounds here. So I won't be playing him. But to speed up a little bit, let's get down to that next range. And we got a lot of guys. Simply, I'm big on the chalk here, and I thought that's terrible. So I'm gonna need you to kind of help me off that. I like Chad Campbell, and I think he's gonna be the highest owned in between 7.9 to 7.5.
Oh yeah,
so,
he will be.
Yeah, I'm finding ways to come off him, and the only other one I see in that range that's just a straight pivot without like losing 300 or 400 on salary is Kevin Tway, because he's a birdie maker. But his last year he golfed this and he missed the cut. Well, I bring that up, man. What's your take on? Let's just split it up to 7.9 to 7.5 since you have so many guys in this range here.
Sure, yeah, and 7.9. Let's see. So I'm not on Chad Campbell because of my rule this week. I'm just not playing the chalk. I'm just not going to do it. If the
Which
chalk
is a great
beats
rule,
me,
by the way. That's a great rule.
If the chalk beats me, then great. I'm willing to bet that the volatility of this course is going to make half of these chalk guys either miss the cut or finish in the bottom 50. And if you look at what Chad Campbell's done here, he hasn't finished super high. I mean, he's been okay, and his stats check out, and his stats on this course check out, but he just hasn't finished super high. And so I don't think that Chad Campbell's going to be the one that beats me. Guys that I like in this range, and these are not stats plays, these are form plays and guys that I've watched recently. I like Russell Knox, and I like Robert Streb. Streb actually has decent course history, and both of these guys, if you look at the recent form here on like Fantasy National, it doesn't look like eye-popping, but I've watched both of them play over the last couple of weeks, and they've got game. Like they might both miss the cut, but they also might both be in the top 20, top 10, because they've both got the game to contend here in a weaker field. And so I think Russell Knox is criminally underpriced, and I'm just going to play him everywhere. And I might play Streb the same way.
I love Streb. I played him last week in my Millie Maker at 0.7% own, and he got like a T20 or something. He finished like one over, which isn't great, but he didn't have a blow up round at all.
No, and he's playing well. And if you remember a couple of years ago, I think it was 2 seasons ago, Robert Streb went on a tear, and he showed that he can play with the big boys for an extended period of time, and then he kind of fell off again. And I think maybe we might be seeing a little bit of a return to form. But this is a guy, Streb and Knox both are guys that fill it up from birdie. And these are my most important stats right here: strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained approach, and birdies. And Streb isn't great here, but I love this right here, 11, 18, 19 from Knox. And the rest of the stats, they're kind of meh, but I feel like that's perfect for this course. A guy that hits in these 3 categories and is kind of meh everywhere else and has a decent week everywhere else, he can really shoot up the rankings for you. And the same kind of thing with Streb. Like, he checks out really well with birdies, and he checks out really well with DK points. So if he can just not blow up this week, then I feel like he's going to have a shot to put up some points. And that's what you need from this range right here. You need guys that are going to score a lot of points.
Right. Like, if you can get some Eagles in that 7K range, they're almost paying off their salary immediately. Streb has been my little darling for a little bit. I really like the Russell Knox take. After all, a lot of people have already forgotten that this guy was leading the WGC Bridgestone, which is guys were like all the top guys, the top 70 golfers in the world were that event, and Russell fucking Knox was winning after like 2 rounds, I think it was.
And he was playing well.
Yeah, if Hideki didn't shoot that lights out like 63 or whatever it was, or 64, to pretty much just say, no, fuck you, this is my tournament, then Russell Knox would have possibly won.
Yeah, I mean, he finished tied for 5th, so not too bad. But man, he was showing some solid game, and I don't know what happened at the PGA. I didn't see him play, but I saw a lot of the Bridgestone, and I really liked what I was seeing from him. If he can carry that over into a weaker field, I feel like he's got enough game to even win if he has a really good week.
I agree. All right,
There's not many guys down here in this range that can win. So if you can pick the guys that can win, I feel like you're going to have a good shot in a GPP this week.
Right. All right. So there's.
Are we supposed to go down to 7.5? Because I'm looking at Kevin Na a lot this week too.
Yeah, you can include anyone in the 7.5 range. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Na for the kind of player that he is. Now I know he hasn't done a whole lot recently. I'm going to pull up his form here. But for the kind of player that he is and the kind of upside that he has, I'm willing to pay $7,500 to get a share of that in this field.
Right, and this is the course that can turn anyone's form around, and it's that easy. So, and Kevin Na is an accuracy guy. He's not a bomber, so I can give you on some Kevin Na.
Yeah, I mean, he can score. I love scorers. I love guys that just know how to put the ball in play and score. He's played 4 rounds on this course. Hasn't been bad. Like top 25 in a lot of key stats. He top 10 last year here. So, I mean, Kevin Na, for a guy that top 10 last year, I have not heard anything about Kevin Na this week. I feel like he could have some decently low ownership in this range.
Right. Yeah, there's so many guys that I think will garner like 5 to 7, and I think Kevin Na actually fits in there. I don't think he's going to cross 10%, just because there's so many guys in this range that you can make a case for in terms of making the cut. Like, it's if I don't want to cover everyone because we don't really have the time for it, but you can make an argument, as we talked about, for Tway, Knox, Streb, even Billy Horschel.
Don't play Billy Horschel.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
Don't play Billy Horschel.
I agree, but I feel we do an injustice if we don't at least mention him. I mean, the guy, he can turn it up like on a dime. So
yeah, he can, but he's been playing like crap.
I got to give a shout out to Greg Stewart real quick. We got to talk about Martin Flores. I told him I would cover it in the video. Martin Flores has been a guy I played early on in the year. I will say this. he had terrible form at the beginning of the year when I was playing him, just because he was always 6,900 to 7K, coming in at 2% ownership, and I kind of had him as my guy. This is the guy I was going to keep going to. Sooner or later, he's going to turn out. Well, after 6 weeks of playing this fucker, he never turned out. So I said, you know what? You're dead to me. I just couldn't do it. So I waited, and I slowly noticed that Quicken Loans, and even before that a little bit, he started to bring it up a little bit, started to make the cuts now. He's doing better. So if you play it by the Wyndham Classic, he's due for a missed cut because in 2012 he missed cut, 2013 he T16, 2014 he missed cut, 2015 he got a T56. So, actually 2016 he didn't golf the event, so let's count that as the missed cut technically. So now he should do well. But his last 5 events all made cuts, all top 64. So John Deere he didn't do too well, but at least he made the cut. At this price, honestly, I don't think you need anything else except a made cut, unless you have a missed cut from one of your other – a made cut, sorry. All you need is the made cut. If you have a missed cut from another golfer, then you're going to need Flores to really top 10 or do something out of the ordinary. But his stats, not phenomenal. I'm looking at the last 12 rounds compared to the field. 20th in putting, which is probably why he's doing so well. Whenever a guy's stats aren't very good, except their putting stats are phenomenal, that generally just shows he's had a hot putter and he's quote-unquote getting lucky. So I've been a Martin Flores truther, and I feel bad I'd feel wrong for not playing him this week, so I'm probably going to have him in one lineup and him on my 3, just because he's kind of been that guy for me. I mean, everyone's got a little soft spot for certain golfers at certain times, especially if you play at the level we do, so or how often we do. Maybe not money-wise level we do, but or as some people do, but whatever. I can get behind Flores. He's not terrible in this range. His proximity is awful, though. He's 150th in proximity from 150 to 175. Awful around the green as well. So a lot of signs telling me no, but this has always been my little darling guy. So in this tournament, you're going to have to take some risks. There's no safe plays. You're going to have to take some risks, and Martin Flores, I agree with Greg, is a solid play in my opinion. Yeah. I am going to bring it out to the last 24 rounds, see if anything changes here, though. Also,
doesn't make a ton of birdies is the only thing I noticed that I don't like.
That's true. Yeah, he's never really. It's tough because if you look at his last events, he's like minus 12, minus 13, minus 14, but that's average. That's not like he's going above the field. Everyone's really finishing that range. So that's why his stats aren't super good, because he got a T18, I think, in his last event, shooting 14 under. Like, that's nuts. Like, you're shooting 14 under and you're getting 18th. So we'll see. Let me see here. I did want to bring up, since I'm looking at the last 24 rounds now, I did want to see where he's. Oh my goodness, boys! He falls to 114th when I look at the last 24 rounds. So that's not looking very good. But his best stat comes at strokes gained off the tee, which isn't terrible. So yeah, not to spend too much time on Flores. I did want to cover him though for Greg and John Irwin as well, and that were commenting on my post that I make each week in there. So I had to do them that decency there. So let me just double check in between 7.5 and 7.9. I think some people, just because of namesake, are going to go to Ollie Schneider Jans, and I'm not going to play him. I think this is
me neither.
Yeah, he got a missed cut at the Barbasol, which is like one of the easiest events all year, and everyone was on Ollie there. So not for me. He's 133rd in putting. I do want to say that sometimes taking the guys that have a poor putter are the good GPP plays, because putting is the most volatile stat. It can turn on a dime, but he's terrible at the par 5 scoring over the last 24 rounds. Just doesn't fit for me. And then when you get below that, right there at 7,500, it just drops off. The one guy at 7,500 you mentioned, he's sandwiched in between Flores and Na, at least on Fantasy National in the price range there. It's Emiliano Grillo. He's another guy that I've loved to play whenever he's under 7K, which he has been early in the year, and obviously in all the majors he is, but he's just been awful this year. Used to be a cut maker. in the years past. This year, he's just been atrocious. Missed cut at the PGA Championship, T50 at the Bridgestone, which is a no-cut event. Only 76 guys are in that event anyway. Missed the cut at the Open where I played him in one lineup. T43 at the Travelers, very weak field, and then a missed cut at the U.S. Open. So 3 big events with four actually in his last 5 with big fields or strong fields, and wasn't able to really hold his own weight. But this week, I think he will be able to. I will play him in one lineup. I will not be overweight. Well, technically, I am overweight if I'm playing 3 lineups. I have him in 33%, but in only 3 lineups, I mean, you're overweight on everybody. No one's going to be 33%. So that's not really an accurate term there. But I will be playing him. And then once we get to 7,400 and below, this is where I really start to be real picky about my guys here. I want to make one point about a guy. I'm not going to be playing him, but Graham McDowell missed the cut at the PGA Championship, and he went straight down to Greensboro. There's photos on Twitter. He pretty much had the course to himself. He was just practicing. So he's on the cusp of the FedEx Cup. I got to bring up those rankings, I think, here. Yeah, give your take on the 7.4 to 7K range real quick while I bring that up, and any hot takes you may have.
Yeah, so we had a question about Rory Sabatini. I haven't really looked into him that much. He looks all right. I mean, he checks out on this course. He looks like he's in decent enough form. I just want to take a quick look at him since we had a question. Yeah, decent form coming in. Not a whole lot of course history. Back in 2013, he did really well. 2012, he got cut. Nothing in the last 3 years. So I don't have a problem with playing Rory Sabatini this week, I don't think. I'm probably not going to need him.
I think he'll be pretty high owned,
Yeah,
though.
he could be highly owned. I don't know. Let me look and see what let's look and see what Fantasy National thinks about his ownership here. See if I can find him. I think he's towards the bottom. Let me look here.
Oh, this is what I want to mention. This is why Graham McDowell was at the course so early. He is 131st in the FedEx Cup ranking. So if he makes the cut, he's looking. There's a few guys in this range that I really like. Flores 139th. That's what I might as well mention that. But I think one of the sneakiest plays, not to interrupt.
Smiley.
Exactly. Bang. Fucking Smiley Kaufman. I fucking had a bet on him at the shit. I think it was the Barbasol. I had a bet on him, Molinax, and Ben Martin, who was like the #1 odds, and they all fucking shit the bed. So in this field, I'm going right back to Smiley. Man. He can make the birdies.
Man. Yeah, and he's coming in with some decent form. He got cut at the John Deere, but after that, tied for 12, tied for 27th. Right. I wasn't looking at him, but I might be now.
Yes, sir. And that was honestly my quote unquote sharp play in that range there. I think his ownership's gonna be pretty low. Maybe not with the sharps, but I'm not playing a sharp tournament. I'm literally playing 3 entry maxes under the.
Yeah, like playing for his life. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I mean, all of his boys, like JT just won the fucking PGA Championship, and what are you doing, Smiley? Like, you're sitting there struggling to make the cut at week events while your boy JT at 24 years old is winning majors, bro. Like, even Spieth got, like, I don't know. And, like, I don't know, man. It's a guy I might even have him in 2 out of 3 lineups, and that takes me some big balls. So,
that's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I feel real strong about him. I got a little soft spot for too many guys, man. And once I saw he was right on the cusp of that 125 ranking as well, that put me right back, like, just full throttle, put me back on him. And Graham McDowell, that 131, I wanted to mention. That's why he was at the course so early. He's been practicing. I think Graham McDowell's his stats actually match up pretty well. Oh, man, Fantasy National is just giving me a loading screen right now. They probably had so much activity on there right now, but let's see here. I'm going to reload it. But let's see. There was – yeah. So Seamus Power right there at 8K is 123rd. I was trying to find him. He's going to be very under the radar. No casual players really know about Seamus Power. I know we're down below that into that 7K range now.
Yeah, you can mention him. It's fine.
I don't have much to say about him.
I glanced at him.
Yeah, if you're playing the narrative, I don't know. You can't play everyone on the narrative. You can't be like, all right, I'm gonna make a lineup between all these guys. You can't really do that.
I have a problem when a guy in a normal field is like in the 6,500 range. I have a problem when that guy is like 8,000 in a weak field. If he's a bad player in a decent field, then he's a bad player at 8K.
Right.
But he scores a lot of birdies, so if you want a lottery ticket, personally, I want my lottery tickets from down here in this range. And so I don't the only other guy besides the one that I really want to talk about is McGirt, and I'm not going to play him because his form is so bad. But on this course, he's been okay. But I can't play him. He hasn't done anything in like 5 tournaments.
Yeah.
The guy that I love as a lottery ticket is DA Points, 7K.
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know what
check out here, but man, check him out over here.
I don't know what it is about DA Points because over in Charlotte, man, he had his own like fan base over there.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
He started all right too. He just didn't finish very well. But on this course and this event, he got cut in 2015, but 2014 he bookends it with a 18th and a 14th, and then in his career 14 rounds, he is first in birdies, 20th in DK points, 16th in tee to green, second in approaches on this course. I mean, for 7K, if he makes the cut, I'll be overjoyed because he's going to have 4 rounds of making a ton of birdies. So, like, I literally just need him to make the cut. So if you're looking for a lottery ticket down here in the 7K range, I think I'm going to end up with 2 lineups this week, and he's going to be in one of them.
I have no arguments there. You're making – yes, I like that because I didn't really want to go below 73, but seeing DA –
I have one other play that I would play. I don't want to go down there, but if you need to – I mean, if you don't like DA and you want another lottery ticket, the only other guy that I would even consider is Willie Wilcox. And the only reason I would consider him is because of his recent form.
Good old Willie. I gotta tell you guys something. This dude knows DFS. Willie Wilcox, I missed it. This morning, Willie Wilcox gave out, or technically yesterday, since today is now Thursday, but in my Eastern time, but just so everyone, we'll say this morning, Willie Wilcox gave out 4 sets of tickets to the Wyndham Championship, over $600 worth to DFS players. And he was like, boy, do I love me some DFS now or something. I don't know if he was being sarcastic, but this guy knows what's going on. He knows people are playing him. People have tweeted at him saying, Willie, I'm playing you just for that shit. Even I told him, you're a lock, Willie. I'm playing you in a lineup. And he favorited my tweet. So I can get behind that, dude.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, he's just look. This is why I'm playing him. His recent form has been okay over his last tournaments in the key stats that I'm looking at. If I swap it on this course, he's number 1 in my model in 8 rounds. Number 1 in my model in 8 rounds. He didn't play last year, but he basically top 25 2 years in a row, and now he's coming back. If you can get a top 25 from a 6,900 player, that's money.
I gotta ask you, man. Tone Lock and Joe Irwin in the chat here say, Hoagie, Pride, or Bird. And Joe Irwin said, I have probably too much Bird and Hoagie. What's your takes on that, man?
I haven't looked at any of them.
I'm just gonna. I responded in the chat saying I think that's some dumpster diving, but
yeah, I don't think you need to go this low. Like literally, like DA Points, Willie Wilcox. Those are my lottery tickets. Those are like guys I don't need. I'm leaving a ton of salary on the table this week. I'm just going that deep to grab a guy that I think has a ton of upside that nobody else is going to have. And that's the only reason I think you need to go down here. You don't have to go down here to fit people this week. And so, like, if you're playing guys in the 7,100 range, in the 7,200 range, sure, play them. But, like, I don't need these guys down here.
I do. Sorry, go ahead.
In my lineup where I'm playing DA, the only other guy that I have even close to him is Kevin Knott, 75. Everybody else is more expensive than that, and I can fit him comfortably.
I do need to mention this real quick before we go on. I skipped right over him, but Brandon Hagee is secretly in great form right now. He's at 55-1. I almost passed on him. That is the same as Danny Lee, the same as Kevin Na, the same as Kevin Streelman, and Ollie. Well, actually, there's like 8 guys at 55. It's Shane Lowry, Russell Knox, Ollie, Robert Streb, Streelman, Danny Lee, and Kevin Na. Brandon Hagee is 7,400 on DK. That's better odds than 8,200 Scott Brown. Better odds than AK Harris English, 8,100 Sam Saunders. So if I don't know, it's still not that cheap because I know these guys are mentioning guys below 7,100. But guys, I can't recommend anyone down that low just because I don't want anyone to lose money based off that. But if I have to go that low, one of my favorite plays based off of recent form and Vegas odds is Brandon Hagee. I didn't mention him, but I skipped right over him. His stats do actually pan out. He's 21st in my entire rankings in the last 24 rounds. He's only piss poor in approach, 132nd. He is known as a bomber, though, which does worry me a little bit because this is not a bomber's course. But if he takes out the drivers, he should take out the driver and switch down to the iron. I think he should be all right. He's 5th in birdies, 2nd in DK points, 1st in par 5 scoring from 500 to 550 as he's a bomber, but 4th in strokes gained off the tee, 25th in putting, so his putter is actually pretty good. Usually when you see these bombers, their putting is atrocious, but it's a good surprise to see that. I don't want to keep going all over the place, but the lesson, if you guys got yet, is this week it's almost anyone. That's why I said, like, you can take who you want up top, but like when it comes to down low, there's going to be a lot of guys in between like 3 to 7%. And there's only a few guys that I just completely would X out immediately, even though I'm only running 2 or 3 lineups. This was a very tough week for me to make my to round out my roster, like my last 2 or 3 spots. Because it really came down to like 10, 15 guys I was thinking about just to fill in 2 spots. So this one's going to be a tough one.
It's rough. It's rough down here. And again, I have found that unless you're trying to fit like a Stenson Kisner lineup or something, that you just don't need these guys in the 66s and the 67s and the 68s. You just don't need to mess with them. Now, there's probably going to be 1, 2, maybe 3 that end up in the top 20. And if you can hit on them, then great. But you've got to choose from like half the field is down here, And so finding that one guy is going to be really hard. Now, you did mention that there is something here maybe worth. You mentioned bubble guys. Ogilvy is a bubble guy.
Oh yeah, he's like 125th exactly. Yeah,
right on the bubble. So like if you're playing that narrative this week, then Ogilvy's a bubble guy, and who was the other guy you mentioned? McDowell is a bubble guy.
Right. Pretty much everyone down here is. I mean, we got all these guys in the
right on the bubble.
Oh yeah,
like well, honestly, they're like right on it.
Big time. But the guy I want to talk about was Daniel Summerhays at 124.
Okay, that dude. That's the one you were talking about. Yeah.
I got a little article I can just read a little bit. I'm not going to read, obviously, word for word, but real quick, guys, Tony Finau and Daniel Summerhays are good buddies. They eat lunch together on the PGA Tour and all that good stuff. And long story short, they both live out in Utah. And Finau, who's 26th in the FedEx Cup standings right now, had a little quote about Daniel Summerhays. Let me scroll down just a little bit here. Oh, actually, it's a quote from his brother and coach that says, "It is what it is," unquote. Quote, "It's been a tough year for him overall, following up last year after his top 10s at the PGA and U.S. Open." That's crazy to think he did that, but I know this wasn't the year he wanted this year after his best season ever. But he's got one more week to get into the playoffs, and then you never know what happens there. Guys can still get to the Tour Championship. It's a crazy game. And then he also said it's a good course for him there next week, so I expect him to get the job done. And then Finau said that he's expecting a top 30 or 40 to lock it up for Daniel Summerhays because anyone from like 145 can get into the top 125 with a good showing based off of any missed cuts or anything like that. So it's going to be a rough week if you're playing that border, that angle. That's why I think a lot of guys are on Rory Sabatini personally. I also like Ben Crane. It's just so like it's tough not to play that angle, but you can't be a fish and play that angle too heavily because not all these guys are going to make the cut. Like, let's just be honest. You can't just play the angle because it's an angle or a narrative or whatever you want to call it. But I before we get to the end, though, I do want to speak about weather because the weather is looking a little weird over here. But I don't feel comfortable really recommending anyone else. Like when we get down.
No, it's like if you want to take a shot, that's why I called these guys lottery tickets. If you want to take a shot on a lottery ticket, go for it. That's what we're not it would be like us recommending the numbers for an actual lottery ticket. Like that's stupid. It's not. It has just as much chance of hitting as possible. So these are informed guesses once you get down to this range. So like DA points, he has a chance based on what he's done recently to be there at the end. But he also has a chance, as he's shown recently, to totally miss the cut. So, like, it's a lottery ticket.
Right. When just to throw this out there, my key stats, the only guy in the top 40 below 7K, or no, it's below 6,800 is, well, let me find it. I actually just scrolled down to make sure it is. I don't even know his first name. I actually got to click on him to get his first name. Oh, it's Chad Collins, actually. I knew that was going to be my guess. Chad Collins. I've heard of him before. That's because he got a second at the Barbasol, so that might be why. He's 37th. Pretty good at good drives percentage, strokes gained approach. I actually have no information on him, to be honest. I couldn't tell you anymore, so just as Caleb said, a lottery ticket. A guy that Seth and I have been on, thanks to Seth's little spreadsheet he made, was a guy named Wee Kim, who seems to do well in these really weak field events. He seems to do well, but I can't recommend guys like these like this. It's too tough to do. And that looks about it. What a surprise! Stephen Bowditch is 154th.
Remember the Greenbrier? Good old Mr. 500 feet of putts. He's in this field. I just saw his name on here.
Who are you referring to?
Munoz, Mr. 500 feet of putts.
Oh, that's right. He was like 18. Yeah.
Dude was.
I forgot.
That dude was ridiculous. Yeah, I'm not playing him this week.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. I think didn't he make like two 30-yard putts, and I don't know.
It was insane. The dude couldn't miss the first 3 days. He couldn't make anything the last day.
Right. I laughed at everyone that played him in weekend, honestly. I mean,
I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, he was up like 4 strokes, and they had like nowhere to go, really. Like
positive, or negative regression written all over him.
I will say this, guys. If you love the putting narrative, the number one putter on my model here, the last 24 rounds, is a guy named Greg Chalmers at 6,700. He is 118th or worse in 7 of my 10 key stats, but number 1 in putting, boys. Oh, man. So
his problem is getting it on the green.
Right. Well, even off the tee is awful. Yeah, everywhere, yeah. But real quick, I don't really have anyone else to recommend, or anyone else I'm even playing for that matter. So if you if you got any guys in there, what do you think?
I'm telling you, I made my favorites lineup that's got DA in it. It started with Bill Haas and Ryan Moore, and then I filled in some of these other guys in the 7K range that I've been talking about, and then I started another lineup, and I started at Keegan, Danny Lee, and put Smiley in there with the same other 3 guys that I have. So really, really, really low owned, take a shot, anything can happen kind of a lineup there. But I think that's the kind of lineup that's going to do well this week. It may not be that one, but that kind of lineup.
Right. I actually have 2 more guys I want to bring up to you just because I didn't expect their price to be this low in this field. And that is Cam Percy and Michael Kim right there together at 6,800. It's
those guys are names.
Yeah, more Cam Percy than Michael Kim because Michael Kim has started to fall off. But it's I don't know. I Cam Percy is kind of that par maker as well, but if you bring up his recent events, he's not too shabby. In a corollary course, he didn't do well. I mean, I think the Greenbrier is pretty similar, and he missed the cut, but he's played 3 out of the last 4 years here at the Wyndham and made all 3 cuts. T60 was his worst finish in 2013, and T38 or better his last 2 years. T12 at the Barbasol, which is a very weak field. John Deere weak field as well, finished T12. So those back-to-back weeks. You got a T70 at the Canadian Open, which is obviously almost dead last out of the guys that made the cut. So 4 out of his last 5 events, he's made the cut at 6,800. I think you can do worse. Michael Kim early this year was the cut-making machine for that price. He never really went above 7K. Then they started bumping him up slowly, and he started shitting the bed. So that I would just say take a look. I'm not going to recommend them, but take a look at those 2 guys. And then my third guy finally is Ben Crane, who I mentioned at the top of the show a little bit. Nothing sticks out to him. It's just a guy that can show up at any time. We've seen him on the leaderboards, not win, obviously, but at 6,800, you're not even expecting that shit. You're lucky to expect a made cut with this field. So, I don't have anything else there. Any final words about the DK plays before we get into a little bit of weather here?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw one more out at like bottom of the barrel, just to make you have to think about him. 2 years ago, Davis Love III won this event, and he dominates small fields. His stats are awful, but he dominates small fields, and he won this event 2 years ago. And he's almost min price. He's 100 more than min price.
Oh, his dad's in this event too.
No, his son.
Oh, it's his son.
Davis Love is the one.
Oh, you're talking about you're talking about the third.
Love
Okay.
The third won it 2 years ago. In 2015. Stats are crap, but he plays well against weak fields. We saw it. I can't remember what event. It was recently, though. We saw him hang out towards the top for a long time and was in contention on Sunday. I can't remember what event that was that he did that in, but, I mean, no one's going to play him this week. And they probably shouldn't, and you probably shouldn't play him this week. But I'm just saying, if you want a dumpster dive, he's down there. That's all I'm not going to say anybody else. I'm just gonna make you have to sleep on that one.
Oh man. Well, luckily I'll probably have my lineups in, so I won't.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Unless I fall asleep, which I seem to do. But yeah. So real quick, let's get into a little bit of weather here. I got it hourly, and I don't want to say there is a tee time advantage because weather is so unpredictable, but it actually looks like there might be a little bit of advantage if there's a stoppage of play, if they have a suspension. So long story short, they have on the weather.com, local to Greensboro here, they are projecting scattered thunderstorms between, let's see here. Well, isolated thunderstorms are supposed to begin at 35% chance at 9 a.m. That goes all the way up to 50%, which isn't still crazy. So it still might even completely miss. But they call for 35% chance from 9 a.m. all the way till 2 p.m., and then it drops to 30%. So it starts getting slower by 3 or 4. And then by 5, it's not supposed to have a chance of raining at all. So if there are, and then at 8 p.m., it's a 50% chance of raining again. But obviously that's when it gets dark and there's no light, so they don't golf in the rain. I mean, not in the rain. They don't golf in the dark, so they will suspend play due to darkness. So if any suspension occurs during the day and they have to begin golfing again around 4, maybe 3 or 4 when the rain's supposed to be done and guaranteed done about 5 or 6, I think you might get an advantage by playing these later tee times. I don't want to take this right now with a grain of salt. I want you guys to go look at your own weather and make your own assumption based on that and let that control it. Don't just listen to me and be like, all right, this guy knows what he's talking about because I am no weatherman. Of course I'm not. But I don't know if Kevin Roth made a weather report from Roto-Grinders for this event. I know he did for the PGA Championship because that actually means something. But for this week, I don't know if he was that serious about it. But when we look back to Friday morning, which would be the guys that teed off late Thursday would be teeing off early Friday, and there is no rain in the forecast until 2 p.m. It goes up to a 35% chance, then it goes up to 50, and it stays at that level all night. So I will tell you guys this right now. Me personally, looking at this weather again, I am no weatherman, I should say, but I am going to have one lineup where I play late Thursday guys only with late Thursday, early Friday guys only in one lineup. It's a risky thing because there might not be any rain. But I'm going to try to get any advantage I can. If this is going to be a birdie fest, I think with a suspension of play, that's going to even make the birdies even more prosperous. So I don't know. It's a tough angle to take, especially with this field and this event. It's a lot. It's better to try to find this angle when the scoring isn't as prevalent, like in the PGA Championship. If there was like a certain time it was going to rain, you want to make sure you're not in that area when the weather is poor. But if you have weather brought up, or what's your take on what I mentioned about the weather there? Because it looks like Friday morning is going to be great.
It looks like most of my guys are spread out throughout the whole day, throughout my lineups. I have quite a few in that late Thursday tee times. I'm just looking at all the tee times here right now. So
most of them are shit, man. I'm looking at 120 and after, like those last 6. And the highest priced guy that I've seen so far from like 120 on is Sam Saunders at 8,100. Everyone else is straight like dumpster fire out here.
So see, I've got some guys 7:30, 8 o'clock want to go off. I've got some guys that are in the middle, and I've got some guys towards the end here. So I don't know. I don't know there's enough guys down here to stack, honestly.
I will say this.
I found if you did a chalk lineup, there's a lot of chalk guys down here.
Right. I found the featured groups, by the way, boys. Yeah, Henrik is teeing off with Bill Haas and Kevin Kisner at 1 p.m. on T1, and on the 10th tee, it's Robert Streb, Brian Gay, and Kevin Na. And I look right under that, and I'd give anyone $1 million if they could just guess who Bud Cauley was teeing off with off the top of their head. It's impossible. It's a guy named Brian Davis and a guy named Tim Herron. So they're not showing much respect to Bud Cauley in terms of who he's teeing off with, but he's teeing off 10 minutes later. So after 1 p.m. Eastern time is where I was looking at, and that fits the Kisner, Stenson, Bill Haas group. I wonder what the morning Chris Stroud's going with Murray and Ogilvy, by the way, which is interesting. And Smiley Kaufman's going in that tee time as well on the 10th. But I wonder what the morning featured group is real quick. Do you happen to know, since if you were looking up?
Yeah, it looks like, well, it doesn't say who's featured, but I can find that out.
I mean, it doesn't tell me that the Kisner group is. All three of those studs being in the same one. It might be the Kyle Stanley, Duffner, Horschel, but there's no 3 studs are placed together. You're right, so you can't really tell.
Here, I'll find out. I have PGA Tour Live.
Yeah, me too, man. It's only like $5 a month, and you can watch it live.
Fantastic.
Yeah, man, I agree. It's better than that bullshit. They actually show you real golf. So
Duffner, Moore, Horschel is the morning one.
Right. So they go off at 8. So first thing in the morning, it looks like. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't.
Who's the second one with them? They usually do 2 at a time.
That's true. They do. I guess it's just because of the field, man. They're probably going to have I don't know what they're going to do.
Let's see. Where's Duffner, Lee Horschel? Oh, here it is. It'll be Duffner, Kyle Stanley, Billy Horschel, and then Ryan Moore, Davis Love, and Webb Simpson will be the other one.
Yeah, because I'm looking at Danny Lee. He's going with Milo and Sheshka at 12:30. I didn't even know Patrick Harrington was in this field. That's hilarious. But yeah. So
so they pair the ones off the same tee right in front of each other. So yeah, wow.
Yeah,
fun.
Man. Yeah, what a featured group, boys. But
Yeah.
everyone should check the tee times, not necessarily to try to get an advantage, but just to see who they're golfing with. It doesn't do any harm. You want to know what time your golfers are going. I don't know. Some people think that they jinx themselves if they play their golfers too early or all at one time or whatever. There's all types of little narratives or things people do, but not to keep the show going too long as we're not really covering any more plays. Do you have any final takes before we well, also, I would say that the wind is not supposed to be strong this week, so you will see some solid scores. The highest wind projection I'm seeing is actually only 8 miles per hour, so we are looking pretty decent when it comes to weather, minus the rain.
I don't weight this really high, but since you told me Greg Chalmers is the #1 putter, my first thought was that in his pairing, he's got Smiley and Jonas Blixt with him. They're going to get good reads on putts.
It's true.
I don't know if you've ever weighted that before. I would never weight it very highly, but that's really interesting. Like I know I've done that before when I've got like guys with Spieth or something. I'm like, they're going to get decent reads on putts because he's such a good putter.
Right. Well, yeah, it depends if Greg Chalmers is in the bushes while these guys are putting or not, though. But yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
He might be giving him a good read for a double bogey, but theirs might be a birdie putt, So
right.
you never know.
So, any final takes? Anything? If you want to sum it up,
yeah. So I think the way to play this week is at least leverage yourself by taking some guys that most people aren't going to be on, because literally we know in fields like this anybody can hit. And I would make sure you have a couple of name players, because I noticed that over the last several years, name players tend to be in the top 5, but there's also guys that you never heard of or barely ever hear of. So it's a very volatile tournament. I'd try to mix between guys that are known to do well here, guys like Bill Haas, guys like Kevin Kisner, maybe, those kinds of guys that you expect to do well, that are kind of names, and then mix in some guys that are more of your like lottery tickets that they're lesser known, they're going to be lesser owned. I feel like that's the way that you're going to have the best chance of winning. Like we said, probably not a good idea to play cash this week, just because there's so much volatility. Any one of these guys, when it's a tournament where you have to make 16 under to win, there's going to be a lot of guys who come and their game's a little off and they shoot 4 under and miss the cut. So, just having a good week this week is not going to be good enough for a lot of these guys that you would expect to make the cut most weeks against stronger fields. So just proceed with caution. I'm playing this week for upside. All of my lineups have guys that can score a ton, and they may all miss the cut, or they may all finish in the top 10. That's the kind of guys that I'm playing this week. I'm not really playing it safe, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 guys like a Bill Haas in each lineup. But most of my guys are for high upside. I'm looking to take something down this week. So I think that's the way you have to play it, and hopefully you guys take something down. Right. Anybody have any questions here before we get off?
Right. And yeah, while we wait for any questions, they do come in. I will say that some sharp, I don't want to call it sharp money, because this tournament, there's no such thing as sharp money. I mean, holy fuck. But Chris Stroud just went from 50 to 1 to 40 to 1 in the last 5 minutes. He is, because they still have him placed in between Chad Campbell and Lucas Glover, because they got Ben Martin, Chad Campbell at both at 50, then Lucas Glover at 50, and sandwiched in between Campbell and Glover is now Chris Stroud, but his odds have moved to 40 now. So that's interesting. You mentioned him earlier, and I
don't know if he's going to be one of those like trains that keeps on chugging, or if he's going to fizzle out. And if he's a train that keeps on chugging, then it's going to get to the point where, well, now he's too highly owned and we can't jump on him. So it's like, I never know when to jump on these kinds of guys, because I don't know enough about them, haven't seen him play enough. I'm probably just going to avoid him this week and hope that if he does well, that he stays under-owned from now on, because if he does well this week and it makes it 3 in a row, I'm just going to jump on the train.
Right, I agree. And also, for what it's worth, Wee Kim was 350 to 1, and now he's 250 to 1. Just thought I'd put that out there, okay, guys?
It's a pretty decent jump.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, Wee Kim, I don't. If you're gonna, don't. I'd just put a bet on him. I wouldn't play him in DK.
Do
Just
some little bet.
bet on him. Yeah, honestly, 50 cents. You're out. Let's see. My math is terrible, so that'd be 125 bucks. 250. Okay, yeah, there we go. I should have known that.
Shoot, I'd put a bet on Davis Love the third. He's already won it.
Yeah, let's see what his odds are real quick.
200 to 1.
Yeah, they're on Bovada. I see it. Yes, sir.
It can't hurt.
All right, so
what if he repeats?
that's true. And we've seen a lot of that so far this year, so who knows?
Yeah.
Even though
took a year off, come back, win it again.
Right. All right, so yeah, just a little summary for me. I completely agree. I mean, this is the week to be volatile. You're not going to win tournaments by playing the chalk. That's why I've been trying to come off guys like Campbell, who's going to be chalk 7.9. I'm worried. Let me bring it up again. The odds here. Who was that? That was really high odds. Who was it at 40? Was it? Oh, Reevy. Reevy at 8.1K has better odds than anyone in his price range. I mean, he's tied with fucking Kyle Stanley, who's 9.3K, guys, and with Bradley, who's 9.5. Better odds than 9.1 Grayson. So it's best to play guys that don't have the notoriety or the talk. That's not a correct term I want to use, but they don't have the exposure, I guess, to the general community that some of these golfers do. So we're going to try to use our research and our knowledge more than the general community knows, and use that to our advantage. Guys like Smiley Kaufman, the general community won't know much about him, but the guy could win an event like this easily. He's known as a birdie maker generally known as a birdie maker. So guys like that I will be going after instead of guys like Chad Campbell or just chalkier guys in that range. Like, personally, I think Kevin Na is going to be a little bit higher owned than most of the guys in that range, but I don't want to. Yeah, you like him, play him, but yeah. So that's what I got, guys. I'm going to be playing real volatile too. I'm going to be playing real low dollar too. I'm not going all in. We got NFL season starting up soon. We got all type of shit going on. I won't be going all in on this event, to say the least. So 2 or 3 lineups, just playing risky. I'm either going to have all 6 guys do really well, or I'm going to have 2 or 3 missed cuts, and I'll be done by late tomorrow or today, technically. So we'll see. It's gonna be actually a very interesting week. I'm very interested. First time in a few weeks, I have no idea what the hell is going to go on. Like, usually you can wake up and open up your leaderboard and be like, of course this guy's in the top 5 or something like that. But this week, you fucking, who knows, right? I mean, I honestly wouldn't even be surprised if Webb or Bill Haas misses the cut. One of them. I don't think both of them do. If both of them do and you fade the 10K range, bro, you're almost like you're looking good. But that's highly unlikely that they both do. But I'm just kind of spurting on here. I got to make my lineups, and I got a class tomorrow, so I better get to going. But if you guys have the ability and you're awake still, do look up that top 125 thing and how that affects it, because no one really knows. Even the Roto Grinders guys don't really know. So if you can find out that word for word, or like actually like how that affects their tour card and stuff like that, then you might be able to have a big step if you choose the right guys, or step up on the field if you choose the right guys. So that's all I got. Thank you, Caleb, for joining me, and thanks for everyone in this chat for keeping it going and asking your questions and sharing information. We hope to keep this going each week here. We'll see with these DK events because as they go on, the fields will get smaller and smaller as the playoffs go on. So we'll see what DK decides to do with their events. They might just do the pick'em thing like they've been doing they just introduced for baseball and football a little bit. We'll see. I do not work for them, so I will not know. But everyone, good luck. Take care. And any final words, my man?
No, I'm all good. Let's get that money this week.
Exactly. Yeah, let's do it. All right. I'm in the tournament where first place is like $100, but hey, it's $100 more than $30. So Let's get it, guys. All right, y'all take care, and we'll see you in the sweatshop and share any green screens with us. Y'all take care.